Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on Live Roll Talk, where we will be discussing an issue, or rather a topic that has been the talk of town the whole week. From last week on Friday, around 10:30 p.m. to 11 p.m., residents of Kibos village within Kisumu County were evicted and their houses were demolished. Something that can be described as heinous, inhumane to say but the least. And tonight we'll be discussing about this important topic with Executive Director of Amnesty International, Mr. Irungu Hilton. I'm having Sheikh Musa Ismail, who's the chairman of the Kisumu Muslim Association. I'm also glad to have Mr. Shafi Hussein, who's the Nubian Rights Forum chairman. And last but not least, I'll be joined by the best among us, that is Ms. Salma Ramadan, who's an advocate of the High Court. But before we delve into the topic, let's look at this story as prepared by my producer, Suleiman Nechesa.
Sisi wa Kenya waturudishe pale wanajua tuko. Hii ni mateso ya aina gani?
More than 3,500 individuals in Kibos village in Kisumu County spent the night in the cold after the Kenya Railways demolished their homesteads standing on the old railway lines. Anguish and agony characterized the relocation of the Nubian community living in Kibos. The residents recounted losses after a night of demolition of their houses despite being relocated to a new area. According to Kisumu East Member of Parliament, the demolition is a direct affront to the sanctity of holy places of worship, Christianity and other religions. Honorable Shakil Shabir said that incidentally, the original mosque in its corrugated iron structure was built by East African Railways and Harbors in 1938 and has been regularly upgraded to the permanent structure that was existing until Friday, February 2021. Kisumu Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o said that he was never consulted in the ongoing demolitions in Kibos, Kisumu, and he was very surprised when this thing went on without reference to him, the city manager or anybody in the county government, notwithstanding what the president had said. Nyong'o added that the Kisumu county government had offered alternative settlements to the families affected, many of whom belong to the Nubian community. The Environment and Lands Court in Kisumu has extended orders barring the Kenya Railways from evicting Kibos residents from their parcel. Justice Anthony Obwayo on Thursday directed Kenya Railways Managing Director Philip Mainga to halt any further evictions until the matter is heard and determined. The Jamia Mosque Nairobi will tomorrow carry out a distribution exercise for food, clothing and other items for the victims of the Kibos demolition. To support this noble cause, send your contribution via M-Pesa Paybill 150770, account Kibos. Nechesa Suleiman, Horizon TV.
Thank you so much, Nechesa Suleiman, for that report. Quite brief, but captures the events as they happened and the stakeholders and the responses in that inhumane, heinous eviction act as happened last week on Friday around 11 p.m. as we had recounted. Mr. Shafi Hussein, who is the chairman of the Nubian Rights Forum, was there when this happened that night. Mr. Shafi Hussein, now would you mind just giving us a recount of events as they occurred that particular night there?
Thank you for having me. My name is Shafi Hussein. I was at Kibos in that particular night of, how do we put it, forceful eviction. And it was very, very sad, very, very sad state of affairs. The eviction took place around 10 to 11. Before 10 to 11, the whole Kibos, in particular where the Nubians are residing, have been surrounded with about 50 motor vehicles from the police force, police service, I'm sorry. And then I think before that they sent the Kenya Power team to cut off all the lights, so people were in dark. And the excavators came in, and all those excavators are from county government of Kisumu. They start with the mosque. I think what they planned was to start with the permanent look-like buildings, which was first the mosque, And the second house is the late Mr. Ismail Babala, who was the first African to drive President Kenyatta and the President of Tanzania and Uganda during the East African community. So those two permanent houses first were brought down. Nothing have been rescued. After that, they went on. In particular, if you know the setup of Kibos geographically, they only bring down those houses mostly which belong to Nubians. Because I'm saying that because where it starts with the semi-permanent houses, there are those which are not belong to Nubians. Those ones are there till today. But they have drawn that thing specifically, and it was specifically targeted the Nubian community.
So you claim that these demolitions were targeting specifically the Nubian community living around the Kibos area?
Of course, yes.
So any house belonging to a non-Nubian within the area was not touched? That's what you're trying to say?
Exactly. All the houses which were for the non-Nubians were not touched. But those ones for Nubians specifically, all the round from mosque, which is in front and in the first line, and Mr. Ismail Babala's house, all those houses were brought down, mostly for the Nubians.
Okay. Yeah. And you say that these vehicles that were used to demolish these structures belong to the county government of Kisumu.
Exactly.
And at the same time, the Kisumu County Governor, Honorable His Excellency Anyang' Nyong'o, came out to say that he was not involved. He even didn't know about these demolitions.
That is a game which we are versed in it. We understood it very well, how our government play around their games. It is our respected government, and it is the executive who ordered for that eviction. And after ordered for that eviction, and it took place, is when Anyang' Nyong'o is coming, running, purporting to be running for the rescue of the Nubian community, which is not true.
Mr. Shafi, can you substantiate your claims that it's the executive who gave the orders to demolish these structures?
Of course, the executive. I was in Kisumu on Friday. The DC came, and everyone in Kenya understood very well who is the DC, which office the DC's boss. Everybody knows that they are all fall under president office. So that is. And the DC herself, when there was a bit of confrontation, she told us, you guys go and ask Uhuru and Raila.
What time was that?
That time was around 4 p.m.
That she came
with a 3 Land Rover for police. Yeah.
To notify you about the eviction?
Straight away, she was trying to tell people, remove your things and put down the structures.
Thank you. Mr. Irungu Houghton, I'd like to bring you in this case because you've been following up this case quite attentively, and you've been hands-on in this case. Now that there is an aspect of involvement, or rather a notice being given for as far as the demolitions are concerned, what's your take on that? Mr. Irungu Houghton.
Thank you very much, Suleiman. I apologize, my internet seems to be a little bit unclear. What question would you like me to respond to?
Exactly. It appears that there was a notice given at least a couple of hours prior to the eviction. Now, what's your take on that?
I think there are a number of issues that still need to be sorted out and clarified. So we hear that the court notice was given to the county commissioner, and reportedly by the community, this order was torn up. That Red Cross officials were on the scene prior to the disconnection of electricity, and that the choice of the timing for the eviction happened just after curfew. So my first question that I would ask is why this was necessary to do this in this manner. I have listened to a number of residents, and they have told me that the excavators and the diggers not only took the roofs off their houses, but they literally trampled these houses to the ground, leaving no possibility of people being able to gather their property. And as we have heard, there may be at least one fatality. A child was killed as the house fell on her. And I think this has to be investigated. There has to be a level of accountability. And I call on the Interior Minister to do an investigation to see who is culpable for the death of this child and the destruction of people's property and private homes that could run into hundreds of millions of shillings.
Thank you.
The second thing I think that's necessary is to provide immediate assistance for the people of Kibos to be able to return to their homes, or at least to the place where their homes once stood. Today with Sheikh Musa, I participated in the rebuilding of the mosque.
Thanks so much, Mr. Irungu. Before we look into the resettlement, we just want to look at the legalities surrounding, or rather circumnavigating this issue as a whole. And that's why I want to loop in Ms. Salma Ramadan. Being an advocate of the High Court, one, it appears to be a notice that was given prior, a source that would love to remain anonymous and not to be mentioned in this show or to be made public by any means, says that this community were given notice since the year 2012 to vacate the premise and be told that a day will come that they're going to be evicted in a way or another. So would we still blame the government even after giving the notice, at least twice in this case? Ms. Salma.
Yes, thank you, Suleiman, for having me in this program. This issue of forceful eviction, demolition has been the trend of government for some times now. We saw it within Nairobi twice or thrice, and now we are seeing it discriminatively targeting the Nubian community in Kibos. What I will say is, suffice to be, whether there is notice or not, the whole eviction process, unfortunately in Kenya we don't have there's a legal vacuum on what the process that should follow on forceful eviction and resettlement. But be as it may, in Mitubel, the Supreme Court, it actually followed the guideline the High Court gave on what should happen on such, and that the soft law on international laws were actually found to be applicable. But you find that none of these, the government or whoever did the eviction, which probably is the government, whoever did is an agent of the government, does not follow. It is so unfortunate that we are having such state.
In this case, from a legal perspective, then what do you think was the best action to take, rather, in this case? Because, I mean, as I said, one, there are claims that notice was given, at least since 2012. This is the 9th year since the notice was issued. Mr. Shafi clearly explains and recounts the events as they took place on that material day. Say, at 4 p.m., the DC showed up at the event where the atrocity happened, and she gave a verbal notice, I assume. But still, what would the government, or rather what were they supposed to do in that case?
As much as the notice was given, am I being heard?
Yes, you are being heard.
As much as the notice was given, at the same time there's a court order. After the notice was actually put up, they rushed to court and they got a court order stopping the eviction. And be as it may, under Article 22 of the Constitution, it is the mandate of the government to provide, protect, and ensure that all the human rights as provided for in the Constitution are not breached. And but here we see a situation where all the human rights category as has been given are being shun away. The same under Article 43, the state is being put upon a positive obligation to provide a right to housing. And this right to housing, as it was held in Mitubel, it is a protective right. When it comes to public land, it is a protective right, and the government has no right whatsoever to evict such people from the land. And another issue which I want to tackle is that you see that the Nubian community have been subjected to historical land injustice from the time immemorial. You can see from the history that we have been told that after building the railway, they were resettled in some land in the airport area. Then after, I think after some time, they were told again, this is maybe it's needed for some other development or for public purpose, and this public purpose is being misused by government every time to evict people. Then because of this public purpose reason, they were again moved and relocated to Kibos. So if as it is, that all these lands which they were being resettled every time were belonged to state agency. Like the first one, it apparently maybe belonged to KAA. Now the second one belonged to Kenya Railway Authority. How is that a resettlement per se legally? For me, I think that is being made squatters in our own country. Nubians are Kenyans, and as much as they are, they deserve. If at all the government felt that this is a state agent land and this is a state agent land, there was a lot of land which was given for relocation. So this is a historic injustice which is being visited over and over again, from one state agency to another state agency. So unless something is, we need to have a stop over this, and now they should be resettled in a land which we will now actually call it a resettlement, because you will not lie with fear that tomorrow another state agency will come and knock on my door. Yes,
the ownership of the land.
Again. So as it is, government have laid a very major historic injustice since the 1930s, and we are seeing the trend continue until now.
Thank you. And we're going to get more into that, the legalities for as far as the resettlement is concerned. But right now, you've mentioned about something very important, about a court injunction that was given. But from our research and from what we got, Sheikh Musa, if you can get me clearly, I would like you to address this at least and make it clear once and for all. Was there a court injunction, or it was just a certificate of urgency that was filed and granted on Friday around 2:30 p.m. Sheikh Musa.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello?
Sheikh Musa, I was asking because Ms. Salma Ramadan mentioned about the court injunction that was given that's there to stop the eviction from happening. And from our research, we could not access or get any court injunction, any directive from the court stopping the eviction and the demolition for that matter. But what we found was the certificate of motion that was granted on Friday around 2:30 p.m. by the Kisumu law courts. Would you mind confirming the facts around this matter?
Bismillah. Let me talk in Swahili, inshallah.
Bismillah, please, feel free.
Kwanza kabisa, samahani nimechelewa. Nilikuwa na mkutano na County Commission, na hiyo mkutano ilikuwa kwa mbali kidogo na tumeweza kuchelewa. Kuhusiana na swali lako, hatukupata court order. Tulichokipata ni court injunction, lakini kueleza watu wa railway ya kuwa masuala haya iko kotini na wasifanye chochote hadi koti iweze kusikiza.
Ilitoka lini hiyo court injunction, na ilikuwa inaelezea watu wa railway lini? Details yake ilikuwa ni nini hasa hiyo court injunction unasema mulipata?
Haijazungumza mambo mengi ila kuwaeleza ya kuwa wasifanye chochote, wasibomoe, wasubiri mpaka masuala haya yaweze kusikizwa kotini.
Na hii ilitoka siku gani hii court injunction?
Siku ya Ijumaa.
Siku ya Ijumaa kabla ubomozi kufanyika?
Kabla ya ubomozi kufanyika.
Shukran sana na asante sana kwa majibu yako. Na kuangalia hali sasa ilivyo, Sheikh Musa, labda tubaki papo hapo naye, maana leo tena kuna mwongozo mwingine uliotoka kotini ya kwamba kuwaamuru au kuwapa ruhusa wale waliobomolewa kurejea katika makazi yaliyokuwa yao hapo awali kabla ya kuvunjwa, na hili litakuwa hivyo mpaka mwezi wa 4 tarehe 21 ambapo kesi itasikizwa. Sijui kama wale wakazi au walioathirika pale maeneo ya Kibos wameamua kuchukua hatua gani. Wamebaki pale katika ile sehemu mbadala waliopewa na serikali ya county, au wamerejea kule walikotoka na walipobomolewa?
Ndio, tunashukuru Mwenyezi Mungu. Katika siku ya jana tumeweza kwenda kotini pamoja na mawakili wetu, na yule jaji au hakimu akaamuru ya kuwa tuna haki, watu wetu wa Kibos wana haki ya kurudi Kibos na kuweza kujenga majengo ya muda ambayo ni temporary structures, na kuwaeleza watu wa railway ya kuwa wasiweze kufanya chochote. Kwa hiyo kwa upande wetu tunahesabu ni kama ushindi, japokuwa ni ushindi mdogo. Na kuanzia jana baada ya tulivyotoka kotini, tumezungumza na watu wetu waliokuwa katika sehemu ile ya pili, kueleza namna ambavyo koti imeamuru, na tukakubaliana ya kuwa baadhi ya watu na hasa vijana wanaweza wakarudi katika ile sehemu yetu ya kwanza na kujenga majengo ya muda. Lakini kutokamana na mazingara na hali na ubomozi na uharibifu iliyofanyika katika sehemu ya Kibos, tunaona ya kuwa itakuwa ni uzito hasa kwa mama na kwa watoto kurudi katika hiyo sehemu kutokamana na hali yake ilivyokuwa sasa hivi.
Naam.
Na inabidi zile mawe na zile uchafu ziweze kutolewa. Kwa hiyo sasa hivi wamama na baadhi ya vijana na watoto wako katika ile sehemu mpya, lakini vijana na hata baadhi ya wamama ambao wana nguvu zao wameweza kurudi katika mtaa wa Kibos na wameanza kujenga majengo ya muda, na pia vile vile misikiti tumeanza kushughulikia.
Okay. Asante sana. Mashirika, a couple of organizations have come together in for as far as aiding or rather supporting this particular affected people is concerned. As Jamia Mosque, we have raised at least 5.5 million. That was as of earlier on today around Jum'ah time, and that was announced at the member. And the contribution is still ongoing. Now, Mr. Shafi Ali Hussein, you were there on the ground. How many families have been affected as we speak? Because we are getting different figures every other time from different people. Now, we don't know whether there are opportunities who have taken chance of that particular opportunity to benefit from the benefits that the victims will be benefiting as well. How many people have been affected?
Of course, during such a problem, when any type of that problem occurs, we understand very well that we have some people who are taking advantage of that. And when I was in Kisumu, that was already happening. The right figure of the people of Kibos is with Sheikh Musa and their elder the Khalifa of Kibos. And in fact, I insist to that. And before I left Kisumu, I told Mr. Khalifa, and I called him even today in the morning, to make sure he keeps the right data of the people of Kibos. And what the rough figure I can estimate, it is approximately 2,000 families
2,000
who have been affected.
Wow, wow. Interesting. Thank you so much for your response, Mr. Shafi. Now, Ms. Salma, I want to come to you and look at again matters legality, because you are representing the legal brains in the panel tonight. So there is supposed a court injunction against this demolition, as confirmed by Sheikh Musa. There is this court injunction to stop this eviction and the demolition. That happened, and the demolition happened together, all together. It still happened. The county government comes in, gives an alternative land where these people who have been affected could be resettled in this particular land. And this land, 2 days ago, someone comes and claims ownership of this piece of land. But the community is adamant, and they want papers for them to move in permanently into this piece of land. But again now, a day ago, yesterday, a court order comes allowing these people to go back to the land where they were evicted from in the first place. So they are in between a rock and a hard place. One, there is a court order allowing you to go back to your place, but temporarily until 21st of April, which you don't know the direction the case is going to go. And at the same time, there is this another alternative piece of land that you've been given. From where you sit legally, which one would you describe as a low-hanging fruit, and how would you advise the community to go in that case? And the general viewers, how would you advise them on which best option to take on this case?
What I will say, much depends on the facts on the ground. Because right now, as we are speaking, as much as the law is there, the law is normally backed up by the facts. So as it is, there are so many conflicting facts. One of the facts is that the land which they've been relocated, the 15 acres, actually is a private land. It's not even a public land. So you even wonder, how secure are you being relocated in a private land from where you are in a public land? Like, is this again a game the county government and the national government is playing on the Nubian people? We don't know. And then again, so unless maybe we are issued with some form of documentation, you see that what informed the settlement in Kibos is actually a document. There's a treaty between the county, the colonial government, and the Nubian community, that based on this treaty, you and your family to come, and your wives and your wives' for future to come, will actually settle within the Kibos Trading Center. So they have a backing, they have a legal backing. Whether how binding it is, how the nature of how to what extent it can be binding on the government, it's actually something which the court need to determine, and the matter is already in court to be determined. But as it is, there is a document, there is something legal, there is something legit. The government recognize that it's actually they have something which actually give them a legal backing to live there. However, now compare this to the new land, which we don't know whether it's a resettlement per se. First of all, there's a claim of being a private land. Secondly, there's a claim, not even a claim, it was even in videos, in TVs and everywhere. And my family actually live just next to Kibos. I'm also Nubi. My father is Nubi, and they're actually among the people, but they live just next to Kibos. That particular land which they've been reallocated to, it's actually flooded. So you're even wondering, under the Land Act Section 12, one of the conditions of resettlement is that the land that they ought to be resettled, it needs not to be a land that is flooded, land which has other issues, other calamity issues. So you find that even under the law, this land does not qualify under the Land Act. And this land also has hinges, has question marks on it, whether it's private or public. There is no document being given by county government that guarantees them at least you can securely live here for this period of time.
In that case, then what do they do?
That's I think I've given my answer. For me, I'll go by, since I have a treaty with the colonial government, the Kibos land is safer for me. Since I have a court order, which actually stopped the eviction, the Kibos land is safer for me. Since I have this other order now, subsequently, which actually say that I should stay there until April, the Kibos will be safer for me.
Wow, thank you. Thanks so much for that. Mr. Irungo, I'd like to bring you in and pick up a comment on YouTube by Yasin Amukoya. Says it is ironical for Mr. Irungo to say he calls upon the Interior Minister to investigate the incident following the rude response from the DC that they go ask Uhuru and Raila. At the same time, His Excellency the Kisumu Governor Anyang' Nyong'o came out and he proved that he was shocked about this matter, and he said that he was not consulted and he does not know who exactly is behind this. So if you're calling upon the Ministry of Interior, and this is something that even the DC says that it's above that level, then aren't we kicking the ball against the wall because it's something that we've done before a couple of times as a people, as a community?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there are some very clear reasons why we need to focus our attention at the Ministry of Interior. I would also argue that we need to focus our attention at the Ministry of Transport. The Kenya Railway Corporation is under the Ministry of Transport and more recently was brought under the Ministry of Finance or the Treasury. Therefore, the County Commissioner and the Managing Director of Kenya Railways are answerable to higher levels. Now, the actual statement that we made was that either the Cabinet should announce that this was taken with their approval and they take responsibility for the brutality of the eviction that took place last Friday, or they have to hold somebody accountable. That is simply how accountability works. What is most unconscionable about what happened on Friday night was that it was not that people got brutalized by state officers and state agencies. It was that it happened in a context in which there are alternatives. There are legal, policy, and administrative alternatives to a forced eviction. Both the Lands Ministry and the UN Habitat have guidelines on how to carry out evictions and resettlement without infringing on people's rights. Kisumu East Member of Parliament, Shabir Shakil, has a bill in Parliament that seeks to stop the kind of mass trauma that we see happen when development or the infrastructural development is expanded. And it doesn't matter whether it is a road, sewage, or water facilities, or even roads. All this investment can be done without breaking through people's homes, destroying private property, and killing citizens. So I think we have to hold the state accountable at this moment. There are three things that I think can happen at this point. The first is that all state agencies must uphold the May 11, 2020 COVID-19 moratorium on evictions. The Interior Minister spoke and said that he has a presidential directive that there would be no evictions during COVID. This moratorium must be upheld. Secondly, the Kenya Railways Corporation must suspend all mass forced evictions until new eviction and resettlement guidelines are in place. It is not just Kibos that we have seen the trauma. There are at least 5 other locations in Kisumu alone There are locations in Bungoma and Nakuru and Kakamega. Lastly, we need an independent inquiry to discover what went wrong in Kibos. Who is accountable and what compensation must be given to this community. And I think that should be taken up by the Senate or the National Assembly. Only when we do this will we restore honor and integrity to the agencies that took place in the February 5th operation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Irungu. And there is a motion that has been moved in the 12th Parliament, the 5th session that took place yesterday. So it's something that's ongoing. But again, more details on that, and I can pick up some of your comments. For example, Raja Balostar says, this land belongs to all communities, not Nubians only. Please, let's stop this Nubian thing. Please. That's the comment on Facebook. Abu Idris, Sadaminti, couple of comments here. Haris Neba, Abdul Hakim Yusuf, among many more, says that they are following closely. But again, let's talk about the closing remarks and what exactly is the way forward on the community that has been evicted from the Kibos land. This and much more coming back after the break.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for keeping it live, Real Talk, right here. Amazing discussion, and I can just start with your comments. Abdurrahman Muhammad says, Mr. Irungu, we are so proud of you. Sam Abdurrahman Muhammad says, we Kibos residents need justice for what happened, leaving us homeless. Polani San Abdurrahman Muhammad, you are in our prayers, you are in our thoughts in these times, and we pray as well that justice may be served to you. Ogoni Muhammad said the land belongs to the community, not only Kibos, but it's not fair to demolish a mosque. How many churches are built along the roads? They have not been demolished. Why only mosque? Nubian community. Justice needs to be done. Interesting comment that came here from Rajab Balostar, who says that the land does not belong to the Nubian community only. Ms. Salam, I'm going to start with you because you mentioned of a treaty that dates back to 1937, I suppose. Would you mind just shedding some light on that and responding to what Rajab Balostar says?
Yes. As part of the document that been shared to me by some of the people here, there's a colonial treaty. It's written as a license, and so that, but the condition in it are such that it has some permanent basis, and the treaty was specifically between the colonial government and the Nubian community. So as it's much of a Nubian community thing. And then on the question of people wanting to disassociate the Nubian and this, I think I will need to put a word there. As much as maybe there might be other communities who have been affected by this eviction, they not as much as the Nubian community. As you all know, the Nubian community, they have no specifically allocated even a county, like ancestral place, that this is actually belongs to Nubi. And like the other people, maybe they are Luos who are neighbors there, but the 17 acres which were demolished, none belong to them. And as it is, the whole of the Nyanza, there's a Kisumu County, Migori County, so many, all of those counties, they have a shoulder to go. They have something to lean on. Nubians community, other than Kibera is even already flooded also with so many other communities. Other than Kibera, you find that majority of them have been resettled along the railway line in small chunk of places. So for the Nubian community, this is more of an ancestral home to them. It is not just a house to sleep. Some of us, we live or we work where we work, but that is where we go as our ancestral home. So I think it is justified to actually bring this and cloth this to the Nubian community. I don't think this is going beyond the scope or going beyond. This is justice, and this justice is needed for this community, which has no specific land to call their own in the entire actually country. Even then, the Kibera one is a communal title.
Okay, thanks so much. Mr. Shafi, you're itching to add some comment on that.
Okay, what I would like to add is exactly what my sister Salma is trying to put. As much as we are defending the Nubian community, each and every land in Kenya has its history. Go to Kibos. You will find that the Kibos land have been demarcated in 1930s, around 37, just exactly when the Nubian were settled there. But the colonial regime left it just like that. And sometimes back, the Nubian history began with the Coca-Cola, Kisumu. That place was for Nubian. They have been removed. And then when they're expanding the airport, Nubian have been removed and then again dumped to Kibos. So in Kibos, there were only 53 Nubian elders. We have that record. It speaks for itself. And up to that time, that 53 Nubian elders are the great-grandfathers of any Nubian who is residing in Kibos right now. So the history speaks for itself, like the history of Kibra. Kibra was 4,197 acres. We've been given 288. I don't know which fraction is that. The same as Kibos was 119 acres. Until the other day when Kari go underground, talk internally with the arms of government, they come up with the title deed of Kibos. Kibos today remains, is it 15 acres, Salma?
18 acres.
It's around 15 acres.
Okay.
So
18
acres.
Yeah.
So you see, all these places, like Mumias, go to Mumias, Nubian land was 8 acres. But today, the county government, Oparanya took 2 acres now, as we are talking. It remains 6 acres. So we are used to that injustice, as my sister put it, historical injustice. But I would like to thank Irungu and all the team, Hakijami, Pamoja Trust, what do you call, Jamia Mosque, all those people who ran to the rescue of Nubians. I would like to thank them.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That is the spirit.
Correct the word. I think the word used is not right. We will say it is time that we fight the injustice.
Exactly.
Yes, it's not.
You're not used to it.
Yeah,
it's time we fight for it.
You don't
stand up
get,
for your right.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Sheikh Musa, ukiwa miongoni mwa viongozi mlioko kwenye sehemu walioko waathiriwa sasa hivi, walioathirika, ni nini hasa yahitajika sana pale? Maana kuna watu wengi au mashirika mengi yangetaka kuweza kuwasaidia pale wale walioathirika pale kwenye mkasa huu uliofanyika tarehe 5 mwezi huu. Kweli ni tukio la kusikitisha na mengi yamefanyika, lakini bado kuna mashirika na watu mbalimbali ambao kwamba wangeweza kuchangia na kuweza kusaidia kadri ya uwezo wao. Kwa sasa tunapozungumza, ni nini hasa yahitajika na hahitajika wapi? Na lao mtu atataka kuleta kitu au vitu, atampa nani au amwone nani? Sheikh Musa. Sheikh Musa, sijui kama ulinipata swali langu. Sheikh Musa, sijui kama ulipata swali langu. Nauliza, hivi sasa wewe ni miongoni mwa viongozi ulioko pale Kibos, na kuna mashirika mengi na watu wengi ambao kwamba wangetaka kuweza kuchangia na kuwasaidia walioathirika kutokana na mkasa huu uliofanyika wiki iliyopita, Ijumaa iliyopita. Sasa haya mashirika au hawa watu ambao kwamba wanataka kuweza kuwasaidia, je, ni mambo gani au ni vitu vipi au ni nini hasa kinahitajika sana pale na wale walioathirika? Lao mtu atataka kujitolea na kuweza kusaidia, basi aweza kusaidia kwa njia gani, ama ataweza kutoa nini ili awe ni mwenye kusaidia sana walioathirika? Okay, nadhani kuna tatizo hapo la mtandao, technical hitch right there, but even as my team is looking into it, I would like to start the final lap and taking in some final and closing remarks from my panelists right here in studio, and Mr. Irungu Kangata and Sheikh Musa, who have joined us via Mr. Irungu Houghton, who has joined us via VMix. Now, Mr. Shafi Ali Hussein, what would be your parting shot as we are wrapping up this discussion tonight?
My parting shot is I would like to go straight to the government and special executive. Please, as a Kenyan citizen, we are calling you. It's high time. You need to do the right thing. Each and every soul is answerable before God tomorrow. So please, we have a law, we have a constitution 2020, we have article 40, sabbatical 4, to whoever is residing anywhere with that title deed. We have a bill of rights, where my right ends is when the right of other Kenya begins. So let us respect the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Ms. Salma, what would be your parting shot tonight?
Yeah, my parting shot. This question, looking at the National Land Commission Act, this is a true question of the historical land injustice, and which has been visited over and over and over again to the community, the Nubian community. So my plea will be, as much as the matter has been filed in court, there is need to put a claim before the National Land Commission for this issue of the historical injustice to be addressed. Secondly, there is issue that when the NLC will be addressing this specific issue, there is need for a true resettlement. Because for me, what has been happening to the community is not a resettlement. Being put in a place that belongs to someone else, it's actually squattership that is being made to squat for some time. So I will call upon the NLC and the government agencies to actually put up, to resettle the community in a permanent place that they will call their own, and that place should actually qualify under the Section 12 of the Land Act. It should not be a flooded zone. It should not be a place visited by by calamities, whatever form. And that unlike the Mitubel principle, which people want to use, this is not just a question of deprivation of right to housing and right to dignity and all that. Yes, it falls under that more than 100%. So they need compensation for that and damages for that. But it is also a question where the right to property, that's the right to land itself, and Article 40 has been deprived. So they will, in my view, it is a question which needs to both, which need an address of both compensation and damages in terms of breaches of other fundamental rights, that is dignity and housing and all that. And it is also a question that calls for right to land, that is resettlement.
Thank you so much, and for your parting shot tonight. Mr. Irungu Houghton, what would be your parting shot tonight on this
I think for Amnesty International,
on Kibos?
The issues are very clear. Firstly, I just wanted to acknowledge all those people who have contributed. 5.5 million shillings in a few days is just extremely wonderful. Islam is a generous religion, is one thing that I have picked from this. I would also like to ask non-Nubians, non-Muslims to also raise funding for the people of Kibos. The need is great, and they have lost everything. Secondly, I would just like to say that the operation that took place 1 week ago, almost 2 hours from now, was a cruel and inhumane eviction. It is not unfortunate, it is criminal. And we must demand that it does not happen again. We must also ask the question of our government. Is there not an alternative that does not have homes, hustles? Kenya upgrades its infrastructure. And let me just come back to the issue that this is not only about Nubians. It is true, there are too many Kenyan communities, apart from the Nubians, who are suffering from displacement. But I think you cannot respond to the historical injustice of the Nubians by saying that other lives matter. This is the response to the Black Lives Matter movement. By saying white lives matter also, you invalidate the historical claim of black people. So in the same way, I think we cannot dismiss the Nubian claim for historical justice. Lastly, let me thank Abdulrahman Mohammed for his kind remarks and ask him to join Amnesty Kenya as I ask all the people who are watching this program. Today I wrote to 10 million supporters across 60 countries, and I asked them to write to the government of Kenya to express their concern about what was happening with the people of Kibos. That petition can be found on all our platforms and on our website, and that is www.amnestykenya.org. Thank you very much, Horizon TV, for the opportunity to speak to your viewers this evening. May the people of Kibos find justice and peace.
Thank you so much. And I'm just getting reports here that the fundraising, we are at 6.1 million. We were targeting to reach 10 million before the end of tonight, but we are at 6.1 million. But we will still keep on contributing, inshallah. Not that tomorrow a team will be heading there to distribute food ration that should last the families at least a month, so that they get the question of food out of their minds and start focusing on something else. A proper food ration that even you at home you'd buy, of course, thanks to your donation. And this is just but the beginning. So inshallah, tomorrow, Jamia Mosque, together with other Muslim organizations, Soup came, Alamin Mosque, Park Road Mosque, Parklands Mosque, Ummah Foundation, Mahadda organization, among many other Muslim organizations. Tomorrow, they'll be represented in Kibos, inshallah. Time is yet to be confirmed, distributing food packs, food ration, proper food ration, I think amounting to 50 kgs worth of food, wheat flour, maize flour, rice, cooking oil, sugar, salt, tea leaves, the basic necessities that any family would need, dates, to mention but a few. I'd like to thank all my panelists for making time for us this evening. I'd like to thank my technical crew for making this happening. And I want to thank you for keeping us company tonight as we were discussing about this issue. Thank you so much. Yes, Ms. Salma, you have something to add.
I just wanted to add one thing. And above the other rights which cut across all Kenyans, and
yes,
which of course applies even to Nubians because they are Kenyans. I will also say the Constitution specifically offers an umbrella and a special protection to the marginalized and the minority.
Okay.
So as much as we will focus on this, we also need to actually put it also on that small focus that this is a marginalized group and a minority. So maybe more is needed as compared to other communities which have more voices to speak for them. They have voices in parliament, they have voices. Nubians don't even have voice in parliament. So because of that marginalized and the minority nature, I believe more is needed.
I'm sure Mr. Shafi has a contrary opinion on that Nubians don't have a voice in parliament.
We have a brother who is at least assisting, but
I have not seen a voice.
I'm supporting you. But we have a brother who is the Kibra MP. Mr. Imran is really supporting. He's really supporting. I just give him a phone call.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين
Mungu amenipa takuacha